Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. This is your host, Margaret McSweeney, here with my co host, Chef Jaime Laurita, who's in the Viking showroom. And this is a dream come true today for me. For years, I have so wanted to have a kitchen chat with Chef Roy Yamaguchi, who truly needs no introduction, a legend in the culinary industry and an award winning chef. He has so many wonderful restaurants as well. And he is joining us from Hawaii. Chef Roy Yamaguchi, welcome to Kitchen Chat.
Margaret, Chef Jamie, pleasure to be on. Thank you very much. It's Hawaii is you should both be here.
You know what?
Yes.
It's a big dream of ours. I love Hawaii. Where in Hawaii exactly are you?
I'm in a suburb of Honolulu called Hawaii Kai on Oahu, and it's we're across from Mauna Loa Bay, which is an incredible bay, and we have I can see Diamond Head from on one side, and then I can see Cocoa Head Crater. Just thrown stones away from my office is Hanama Bay, where you can go snorkeling, and it's beautiful.
Well, Margaret, I
Oh,
think I think I'm just going to go move in and help Roy in the kitchen.
I would love that. In fact, it was so much fun. I often go to Kauai, and Hawaii is part of my history. In fact, my parents met and fell in love in Honolulu. So because of
Really?
Hawaii, I'm here. So,
Like that.
but I always loved eating at Roy's there in Kauai in
Yes.
Poipu area. Just such a beautiful menu. You have always just delivered and presented the best. And I'd love to hear about that and for everyone to understand how you are the pioneer of Asian fusion. Can you share with us that story?
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. So, I started my career in Los Angeles, but prior to that, I was born and raised on a U.S. Army base in Japan. So my father's from Hawaii, but he met my mother in Okinawa, and he ended up moving to Japan. So I was born and raised there, and then from there, I actually um, enrolled to the CIA, the
Huh?
Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park. So I
That's
went
right.
direct. Oh yeah, great school. So
Yep.
so I went directly from Japan, outside of Tokyo, to New York. And after spending a couple of years at the institute in New York, getting my education. After that, I moved to Los Angeles. So when I was in Los Angeles, I worked for different restaurants. I worked in a Scandinavian restaurant. I worked in the country club. I worked in a very, very traditional French restaurant called the Escoffier in the Beverly Hilton Hotel.
Yes.
And one place that I did work, which kind of really changed my entire being, is that I ended up working for two great chefs, John Bertinu, the late John Bertinu, and Michel Blanchet, at a restaurant called L'Ermitage.
Mm.
And L'Ermitage was this French restaurant where all the great chefs from France went and kind of did their 1 week, stay. So chefs like Marc Menot, Roger Jaloux, Paul Bocuse, and so anyways, you had all these great chefs that went through that kitchen, with their, you know, different festivity events. And then the two great chefs that I worked side by side with really changed my entire outlook of how to cook. And when I was there, you know, I learned that French cooking, and then I really wanted to showcase my upbringing. You know, and being born and raised in Japan, the love of Japanese food. I just said to myself, God, I want to create my own identity. So I really worked hard on combining the Japanese and the French, and I started doing that back in the early, it was probably like in late 70s, so 79, somewhere around there, 78, 79. So when I ended up having a chef's position at this restaurant in a little, town called Burbank, Burbank, California, close to NBC Studios, right on Olive Street. Well, the restaurant was called Esserine, and I combined the French and Japanese and came up with my own style of cooking. And ever since then is where I created my identity. So it's been a pleasure ever since then. Just combining my upbringing with the French cooking that I learned from these great chefs, and then kind of created my own style of cooking. So here it is today.
And Roy, what about the business end of it? I mean, we talk about the stage part of it, training and being around the energy of such great chefs and being in the room. You can really download the energy of cooking. But what about the business side? Where did you get your, how did you cut your teeth on the business side of things?
Well, when I was in Los Angeles, so I was part of a restaurant called 385 North. And while I was working at the LAX at the airport, I was working in this hotel, and I was the chef of this restaurant called Le Gourmet, and I was thinking about really just being a chef and thing, and then this guy comes up and says, "Hey Roy, you ever thought about opening a restaurant?" So I said, "Well, not really. I just like doing what I do." And he goes, "Hey, you should really think about opening a restaurant because I think, you'll do well." So thought about that. And then one day, these three gentlemen walks into the restaurant and has dinner, right? And so after they have dinner and stuff, I walk out to the table and one of the gentlemen goes, "Roy, you guys you don't know me, but, we really have enjoyed your food over the years. And we would like to somehow open a restaurant with you." And
Wow.
So these were attorney and two doctors, Dr. Candell and Dr. Salk, an attorney by the name of Tom Martin. Well, anyways, the three gentlemen were partners with Wolfgang Puck, and they helped open the first Spago. And at that time, Spago has like really skyrocketed to fame, in matter of months, maybe even days. And so they had a very hit restaurant, right, with Wolfgang, a superstar chef. Back then, even before Spago, when he was working at Ma Maison and stuff, he was just a great chef. So with that restaurant just going nuts, they said, "Hey Roy, let's do a restaurant together." And so we ended up doing a partnership together. And on the weekends, aside from working, every other weekend, we used to have these so-called investor parties where we would hand out these prospectus on putting of this restaurant that we were going to open, and I would cook the food, and within about 3 months, we were able to get about 70 investors with about $1 million and 1.1 million in investment money, and off we went to open the first restaurant. So so it was kind of like learning as I went.
Right.
And one of the biggest, I guess, learning curve I went through was that when I had that restaurant, 385 North, we were extremely busy, but we lost money on a day-to-day basis. And at the end of 4 years, almost 4 years, we almost went bankrupt. And, we had to actually sell the restaurant, 10 cents on the dollar. And I think that was my biggest learning curve, and the most I've gained from the business end of it, because, I went through that process for 4 years, and I didn't want to repeat that, never again. So when I opened my restaurant, the first original Roy's in Hawaii Kai, where I am today, I said to myself, okay, everything that I did wrong and everything that I didn't do, I wanted to make sure I do not want to make those mistakes ever again. So I think that it was that instinct of this failure that I had that propelled me to learn more about business and be really focused in on operating a restaurant as much as being the chef.
Wow.
That is so important. And speaking of being the chef, I'd love to hear your perspective on what are the flavors in Hawaii that you truly bring to the forefront on the plate.
Well, I think the most important is the state of mind to start with.
Mm.
I think it's a
Good
state
ingredient.
where I really want to get people to really engulfed in what Hawaii is through the food that I've created. So going back 30 years, 31 years, because Roy's has been Roy's is we started back in 1988. The original Roy's where I am today. We opened December 23rd of 1988. So almost 22 years that we've been here, and the whole thing going back to was using the local ingredients. So utilizing the local ingredients that are found in Hawaii, whether it be seafood or whether it be meat or whether it be the great produce or the great fruits that we get from the islands. It was important for me to utilize those items in creating my dishes. And of course, my style of cooking has always been this so-called Euro-Asian, this Asian flair, really mixed into the French. Just by using the local ingredients, kind of like came together.
So, Roy, I have a question for you, chef to chef. First of all, I want you to go back to when you were a little boy, and I don't know whether it was in Japan or wherever, but what was your first like aha moment that you had with food that you just remember as a child or whenever that moment was that made you think, I want to do this for the rest of my life? Question part one. And question part two is, what is the thing that today you sit at home as a chef, and what is the go-to thing that you just love to make for yourself that you just enjoy over and over again for yourself?
Okay, so the first part to that question would be, so as a kid growing up, my father did most of the cooking.
Mm.
Because my grandfather, his father owned a restaurant in Hawaii
Okay.
back in the early 40s. So, you know, so he did most of the cooking. So, I got involved every now and then and helped him out and stuff. But he used to have this jar filled with teriyaki sauce.
Okay.
Ah.
So I would go to the jar and get some teriyaki sauce and make chicken teriyaki or beef teriyaki for my friends. But I never thought about being a chef or anything. But I mean, I used to like to dabble, you know, using that teriyaki sauce because I loved it so much. I would almost drink it, right? Because my father, it's so good. And my father just made teriyaki. I mean, he would teriyaki anything and everything in this world. So that's a start. But the other part to that is that when I was in high school, again, it's an American speaking high school because it's a U.S. Army base that I lived at, and so in Japan. So a friend of mine says, Roy, one day he comes up to me and goes, Roy, we should really take home ec. So I said, home ec? What is that?
Oh
And he
my.
goes, don't worry about it. We're gonna meet rules. So I took home ec, and so I was peeling vegetables and I mean doing all kinds of stuff, in that 1 hour period, you know, during the daytime, and you know, so taking home ec and stuff, I really enjoyed it. And then the instructor says, okay, next week, we're gonna make whatever you want to make. So you can make a dish in class, and then you can invite one person to be your guest and to eat whatever you
Me.
make, right?
Right.
So I said, hey, great. So I did a roast turkey. I invited my school counselor,
Huh.
Ah.
and he ate the turkey and he goes, hey, Roy, this turkey is really good, and the stuffing is really good too. He goes, you ever thought about cooking as a career?
Wow.
Yeah, so I said,
Amazing.
not really. And he goes, you know what, you should really think about it. So, anyways, the school counselor did all the research and had found out that the Culinary Institute of America had CIA had just moved from New Haven, Connecticut to Hyde Park, New York,
Mhm.
and he got all the material, and he just says, if you're really interested in going, which I think you should, why don't you get a hold of three teachers and have them fill out this form, or write a essay or something about you, and I'll help you submit it. So I did, and I went to the CIA.
And then part
Amazing.
two of the question, what about when you're at home now today? Like even as far as like the go-to thing that you just love to make for yourself. It could even be like, for me it's a grilled cheese sandwich. It's like just something simple, or what do you actually love?
You know what? I have to say that one of the things that I probably make the most is yakisoba,
Okay.
which is
Mm.
the Japanese fried
Yeah.
noodles,
Yeah, I love
and
it.
it's it's an instant pack. Okay, it's a pack
Yeah.
of noodles.
Yeah.
Right? It's already cooked, and
Right.
it comes with a powdered sauce. So what you do is
I
and
can't.
usually the way I make it is I get bacon. So I get bacon and I kind of chop it up and chop and onion and carrots is a must. If I have time, I'll throw in some celery, but usually it's onions and carrots and bacon all chopped up, and I'll saute that, and then I'll add the noodles that's already been cooked. You don't even have to put it under water or anything. You just throw it in there,
Yeah,
and
you
then
do.
you get the dried pack
Yep.
of this dehydrated sauce, and you pour it over it, and as it starts to heat up, it turns into kind of a paste, and then it kind of coats the noodles, and there it is, and
Wow.
it's ready in 5 minutes.
You see,
Wow.
Margaret,
I love
two
this.
things, and I'm so glad I asked that question, Margaret, because I just resonated with you on many levels. I never told you this story, Margaret, but I actually had a similar experience in home ec with a baked
Ah,
Alaska.
Oh,
And
wow.
really?
then when I was in Japan traveling with Aerosmith, I brought home so many different types of noodles. So I resonate with the noodle story. But that was a great answer. I love that. It really took me
Oh,
to it made me understand that you who you are. You at the core, you're simply like you just seem like a very nice person.
yes.
Oh, I
Oh,
appreciate
for
it.
sure.
Thank you.
That aloha, the aloha spirit. And I assure you, my home ec teacher did not give me those words of encouragement to pursue a culinary career. But
Your
I'm
math
so,
teacher though probably liked you.
yes, I'm so grateful to both of you. I love, well, first of all, my favorite Hawaiian word, my very favorite Hawaiian word is amua, about moving forward in courage. And I love that you, Chef Roy, are involved in a MUA foundation. Can you share with the listeners and viewers about that wonderful way? Because charity does begin in the kitchen, and you have such a great heart for charity.
Well, I appreciate that you bringing that up because Imua, like going forward, charge, and it's kind of interesting because when we first opened, one of the first restaurants I opened on the mainland, and I think we were in Florida or somewhere, and we're having this conversation, and at the very end I said Imua, so everybody says what? I said move forward, and I said charge. So they said, you mean charge our guest? Just charge,
Like we are.
move forward. But anyways, this organization out of Maui, so Imua Family Services, we've been now involved with them for over 20 years. And, we do a golf tournament every year. And the money that we raise for this golf tournament, we give to them. And it's early childhood learning, so and development. So it's great where you can get in front of the kids while they're early with disabilities and so forth, and hopefully put them on the right path. And it takes nourishment, and it takes individuals that care. And what better than in Hawaii, where you have individuals and you have people that really care, and coming from all facets of life, and all these people just get together, and as a group, we're able to move and change people's lives because you know it's people from the restaurant industry, or the director of the facility itself, or people that are volunteering, or the people that are giving financially. We all come together, and we don't differentiate ourselves from each other, meaning that what we do is we contribute in ways that we can, and we're all equal, meaning that, hey, listen, you know what, everybody's got to participate and be a stakeholder, and we're all responsible evenly to make sure that what we do is going to be beneficial. And I'm not better than you, and you're not better than I, and we're all doing it together, and we have a cause to do it, and it's been great, because it's been a great learning experience for myself to be able to participate in that, and then being able to contribute for the last over 20 years. It's been awesome.
Oh, I just, my heart is smiling and I'm sending you hearts. I mean, this is amazing. Thank you for your commitment to that. I have another question. Is there anything on your bucket list still, Chef? I mean, you have cooked with so many people around the world, so many countries. Is there something you haven't cooked yet or somewhere you would still like to cook with someone?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they listen. Yeah, at the end of the day, to me, cooking is a living thing. It's always evolving. It's always changing, and every time we cook, because we put our heart and soul into it, we're giving a little bit of something away from ourselves. Every time we cook, the outcome is always different, right? I mean,
Mm.
it's never exactly the same. There's always a little something different, even though it tastes the same or looks the same. There's always something that's a little different, and that's because it's alive. And so, as long as I live, to me, it gives me great pleasure on a day-to-day basis to be able to go in the kitchen and work with my guys, because it's that's what life's all about. So, I mean, I don't really know exactly who or when, but I would definitely love to cook with the both of you,
Yes,
and,
good
Oh.
answer.
and, and
Good
cook a
answer. You know what? I would
some
love to
fish.
speak with you.
You know,
You're you're
I mean,
you're you are hitting so many notes with me. It's unbelievable. Especially one that you said about, it's almost bringing tears to my eyes about cooking. I love to
Mm.
cook so much, and I'm so passionate about the ingredients being, the energy around you, right? It's everything matters, everything, and you know that. I once had a meal, and it was a meal that I'm not someone that, Grand Natchez here at Alinea here in Chicago. I was given a gift to go there, and I'm not that person. I love going to find the most beautiful ingredient that speaks to me in the supermarket and then bringing it home to myself. But he wrote, the experience was amazing. The food was incredible. I was very impressed with everything. But he wrote in a cookbook on my birthday, and he said to me, "Chef Jamie, where does it come from?" Question
Mm.
mark. And I could not believe he wrote that in my book, because I've always asked myself in the most creative moment, like when I look for that ingredient that's really right in front of my face most of the time, I ask myself, where does this come from? Do you ever feel like that?
oh yes, I'm always thinking things like, where does it come from? What can I do with it? And how do people feel?
Yeah, I'm talking about the energy sometimes when you're having a really crazy hard day, or you're having like the most intense creative moment. Something just miraculous happens when you're on the edge of creation and you're creating something and you're feeding people and you're adding yourself into it. I ask myself sometimes, when I know that the universe has provided it or the recipe came from somewhere else, I think to myself, where the heck did that come from? And that made me think like that there's almost like an energy that we tap into as chefs. And most people do when they're passionate, you know?
Well,
There's
yeah,
that.
well, that's how I get inspired. I mean, I get inspired because there's so many great things that I see and feel, and I get the vibes from people that are around me to be able to be inspired to cook even better. So
Right.
so definitely, I agree with you.
Oh, you and I, when Margaret, that'll be
Yes.
a dream date. Margaret and I
Oh,
are dying to come to Hawaii. I will be cooking with Roy for Margaret and each other. That would be, let's put that on our bucket list.
that would be so amazing. And I call that inspiration hugs from heaven because, as you may or may not know, Chef Roy, the reason that I began this kitchen chat journey is to honor my late father, who was an incredible gourmet home chef. And I never understood what his joy of food, joy of cooking, joy in the kitchen was all about until midlife. He passed away 30 years ago last week. And so Jaime has been such a joy on this journey as well. And it would be beyond an honor, truly a hug from heaven to be in your kitchen, Chef. I'm getting goosebumps for us to cook with you. I mean, that would be amazing. Thank you for your graciousness.
We'll have a blast.
Chef, I don't know if you know this, but Margaret is actually, seriously, like I know you've met a lot of people in your life, probably thousands upon thousands. Margaret is probably the most honest, trustworthy, kindest woman you'll ever meet in your life. And when you meet her and know her, you'll say, you know what, you're right. And that's a rarity. So you're both on the screen. I'm looking at two people side by side. I think I see two peas in a pod right here.
Oh, I
Oh, thank
appreciate that. Thank you.
you so much. Well, I always like to end the show with the top 3 tips for the home chef. What could you share with our listeners about top 3 tips you would encourage them with?
Oh, I mean, I'm not so sure I have any tips for anyone because, I make the same mistakes all the time.
That was actually a tip.
It's hard for me to give anybody advice or anything, but I don't know. I mean, when I'm at home, I really make it a point to, always, number one is, because my wife, it's kind of interesting because my wife and when my wife's cooking at home, she always says, "You're home already," meaning that I'm going to start getting in her way, or I'm going to so she goes, can you go and do something and come home later on, or because you're always watching over my
So your
shoulder.
first tip is stay out of the way.
But anyways, I mean, for me, it's always been, I could be because I mean, I have friends that come to the house, and I have friends that cook, and they cook stuff in my house, and all of that stuff. But I've always noticed, number one, that most individuals that cook at home are unorganized.
Mhm.
They're usually unorganized, and they're always scrambling. And so if I look at my wife, she's always scrambling, and so that's one thing where like we learned, and Jamie, like we learned at the CIA. One of the first things you learn is the mise en place. Get everything ready, have everything ready, and you have them all lined up, and all of that stuff. And so whenever I cook at home, even if I cook, I mean, the easy stuff, no problem. But if I invite, guests over, and I want to make a meal that's a little fancier and stuff, I always line everything up, and I always make sure that I have everything ready, and I can just add as I go. So that's extremely important to me.
Yeah, organization.
Organization. The other is, don't follow every recipe to the T, because and because my wife does that. My wife follows everything by the T. So what happens is, say for instance, like the other day, she said she wanted to make chicken cacciatore. So I said, do me a favor and don't make it, because I know you're gonna get 8 pounds of chicken, right? It's only gonna be for like 2 people. You're gonna get 8 pounds of chicken, and you're gonna make this recipe, and we're gonna end up with 20 chicken breasts or chicken thighs or whatever, and left over in the refrigerator. She doesn't know how to break down the recipe, so she goes right by the T. So what I always say, recipe is only a standing.
Right.
Hmm.
It's just something that you look at but you have to put your own into it,
Sure.
which
That's a great tip.
really, which is the most important, and that's you need to cook from the heart.
Oh my God,
Mm.
that's a great tip. It's like the foundation is the recipe, and then you get to paint the house any way you want.
Yeah, you got to cook from the heart. You just and that's what makes food great.
Yeah.
I always say that sometimes your parents are not the most sophisticated cooks, but normally you really enjoy having your cooking is because it's cooked with love. It's cooked with passion. It's cooked with love, not the kind of passion that's like a desire to become a great chef or anything, but it's that passion they have because they love you so much, and all that love goes into the cooking that that they're doing. That the food just tastes great. And my mother and my father both passed away, but I used to love to like after my mother would cook, and she would be sitting there with me because sometimes my father would go out and do something, and so it's my mother and I, and then after she make me like a bowl of or even like reheating a bowl of stew or whatever it may be, she would just sit by me and she would watch me eat.
Oh.
And I used to love her just being there, just watching me eat, because I knew that what she did for me was with love. And the cooking that she used to always do is because she wanted to do it for me. And it's all that love that she had in her, and that's what made her happy. So I would sit there and I would eat, and sometimes my friends would say, "Hey, Roy, what do you eat? Why are you eating that hamburger with a chopstick?" but that's my mother would cook and make me a hamburger steak, with little rice, and I would eat it with chopstick. And but my mother would sit there and just watch me eat the entire time. And I thought, that's just one of the greatest feelings, and I'll never forget that. You know.
I'm
Wow.
so grateful we did this. You just
Yes.
tapped into my soul as well. I resonate with you on very, very, very many levels. You're awesome.
Yes. Oh, Chef Roy Yamaguchi, thank you so much. This has truly blessed us here on Kitchen Chat and the listeners and viewers. And we'll make sure, everyone, that we have a link to your many wonderful restaurants and all that you continue to do. And we'll also have a link to the foundation, AMUA, so those who want to contribute. But thank you so much for being on Kitchen Chat today, Chef Roy.
It's an honor and it's been fun, Margaret and Chef Jamie. Again, pleasure to meet the both of you through visually through this chat, and thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, dear
Dog,
foodie friends. Oh, yes, we have little Ted there. And thank you, dear foodie friends, for joining us on today's Kitchen Chat. Please visit kitchenchat.info for more information. And always remember to take a moment and savor the day.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
aloha, aloha.
Thank you. Aloha. Thank you
Hang
so.
tight.
Thank you. We can't wait to visit you.
Please do.
Thank you.
Well, I'm waiting.
Bye,
Oh,
Roy. We'll be
thank
there.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Aloha.